Our next storyteller is an actor, a director, a comic, a writer, and Warren used to be the arts editor at the Gazette. He is now the agency voice at Vladimir Jones Advertising Agency. Please welcome my eminent co-host, Warren Epstein.
When I told my brother David, my big brother, about my plans to marry Carol Rubin, his response was less than encouraging. Come on. You're not going to marry Carol Rubin. I said, why not? I love her. He said, first of all, you're 7. David was the deliverer of the harsh truths of my life. The Tooth Fairy, Hanukkah Harry. And I said, David, you don't understand. I love her. And true love, real love, lasts forever. He says, no, that's the fairy tales and the movies. You know, the fact is that in real life, you may think that you love her, but things can happen. You're going to get older, you're going to move away from one another, things are going to get in the way. Life is going to get in the way, which is kind of profound for an 11-year-old. The thing I didn't know that he did was that my parents were going through a difficult divorce at the time. But the thing that David didn't know was the intensity of that first love. You know, we dismiss it as puppy love. But I'll tell you, there's something about a love that it's before you get into relationships that deal with compromises and resentments and all these other things. It's before you've even been hurt. So you don't even realize that falling in love is like walking out on a precipice. Right? So let me set the stage for you. This was 1967 in Monticello, New York, the Borscht Belt, Catskill Mountains. This was at the height of the Borscht Belt in the 60s. And you know, this is the place where Jews from New York City would go to countrify themselves during the summer, right? And those that had a bunch of money would stay at the big hotels like Rosinger's and the Concord, and Jerry Lewis would play on the weekends, and those who didn't have the money to stay at the hotels would go to bungalow colonies. And that's where we were. My grandfather owned one of the bungalow colonies, the Alpines. And those of you who don't know what a bungalow colony is, it's like a collection of cottages, and you got a candy store over here, and these meadows, and streams running through that you can catch salamanders. You know, for a kid, it's heaven, right? And to make it even sweeter, I had this girlfriend, Carol Rubin. I'd known her since she was a baby. We literally were playmates in the playpen together. Our parents were friends. And we grew up, and by the time we were 7, we were going steady. Which what that meant was that we would hold our hands around each other, you know, together, and we would kiss each other on the swings. But most of the time what we did was just like the other kids, we just ran all the time. You know, you had the games Ring Alivio and Capture the Flag and Red Light, Green Light. And most of the time we just ran to run. We had these giant open high meadows, and we'd run until, you know, it was late in the day and our shadows would turn into giants. And then we'd hear our mothers calling us. Warren! Harold! I'd go back. And I remember when I told David about our pending nuptials. He said, "What? Have you even been to bed together yet?" I said, "Yeah." That stopped him. Yeah, just the other day, she was in my bed, we were playing Chutes and Ladders. And he had this sly laugh. And that laugh told me that there was more to that expression that I wasn't understanding. And I knew it was dirty, and I knew I desperately wanted to figure out what it was. So that night, I'm in Carol's bedroom and I ask her to close the door, and she does. And I said, Carol, I want you to do something for me. And she told me something that no girl had ever said before, or really since, which was, Warren, I will do anything you want. This is the kind of blank check. I mean, gosh, what a rich moment, full of possibilities. Anything you want. Let's dress as firemen, and, I don't know. So I'm going to figure this thing out. So I said, okay, I want you to take off your shoes. She takes off her shoes. I want you to take off your socks. She takes off her socks. I want you to get in bed. And she gives me kind of a look and gets in bed. I take off my shoes and socks very, very quickly. And I lie down next to her, but opposite her, so that her feet are opposite my face. And I grab them. And I smell them. And they smell like vanilla and dirt and walnuts. And she grabs mine. And the door opens. And her father is there. Now, I didn't realize that we were lying in a position that I would later understand had a numerical designation. But what I knew was that there was a whole lot of screaming and I was running across the field in the wet grass in my socks. And I got home and my mom's asking what's wrong, and I'm not telling her, and I just can't talk about it. And the funny thing about shame, how it tends to multiply on itself. Because years later, when I found out that Carol's dad had died, I was glad. And he was a nice guy. He was even nice to me after that incident, and for long afterwards. But I was glad, because it was as if a witness to this shame was no longer around to bear witness. And I have shame about that feeling. But David was right in a way that Carol and I did. She moved away, her parents moved away, and we drifted apart. We wrote letters to each other. But the letters became less frequent, and by the time we exchanged photos, we didn't recognize each other anymore. But in a really more significant way, I found out that David was dead wrong. I'll tell you why. But 24 years ago, I'm in Tampa, Florida, working at the Tampa Tribune, and I'm living platonically with this woman that I really have no interest in. At least I'd convinced myself that was true. She's from Iowa, I'm from New York. I mean, I just didn't see what was there. I came home early one night and from work, and I see that through the window, I see her in there, and the music is the Police, and it's cranked. Talking Heads, Burning Down the House, which is not the most encouraging thing to hear your roommate playing. But I see that she's by herself, and she is dancing from one room to another with this crazy abandon. And I just looked at her and I thought, I'm going to marry her. I'm going to love that woman forever. And I did. And I do. And it's just one of those things that I'm so grateful for. We have 2 children, and they're both doing great, and we're slowly growing old together. And the thing I think about with David's advice about, life does try to get in the way every day. It does. And we have to both dedicate ourselves to this silly fantasy that love, real love, lasts forever. Because, I mean, in the end, it's the only thing that does matter. Thank you.
Yeah.